Okay, so today we're doing something a little bit different.
Okay.
Instead of looking at a specific topic, today's deep dive is going to be
All right.
looking at the terms of use
It's interesting.
for a company called DeepSeek.
Okay.
And I know what you're thinking, right?
Right.
Terms of use.
News fest.
Total snooze fest.
Yeah.
But trust me on this one.
Okay.
This is where things get
I'm ready.
really interesting.
Okay.
Because DeepSeek is working on cutting-edge AI. And their terms of use kind of give us a window into how they see the future of this technology and how we fit into it.
You're absolutely right. Terms of use are often overlooked,
Right.
but they can reveal a lot about a company's values,
Yeah.
especially in a field that is as powerful and rapidly evolving as AI is.
Exactly. So first things first, who is DeepSeek?
Sure.
What makes them so special in this world of AI?
Okay, so DeepSeek is a Chinese company.
Okay.
They have branches in Hangzhou and Beijing,
Interesting.
and they are making waves with something called generative AI.
Generative AI.
Yeah, and it's powered by something called large language models.
Okay.
So they're offering products that you and I can use directly,
Yeah.
but they're also offering tools for developers through their open platform.
Oh.
So think of it this way.
Sorry.
They're not just building the car.
Okay.
They're also supplying parts so other people can build their own vehicles.
I am intrigued, but I'm going to need you to break this down a little bit.
Sure.
What is generative AI?
Right.
And what do these large language models actually do?
You know how when you use Gmail and it like suggests words or even entire phrases as you type?
Yeah.
That's a very, very basic example of a language model at work.
Okay.
But DeepSeek's models are like that on steroids.
Oh, wow.
So imagine a supercomputer that's read everything on the internet, every book, every code repository.
Yep.
It's just absorbed this massive amount of information.
Okay.
And then using really complex algorithms and neural networks,
Mhm.
it can predict what comes next in a sequence.
Interesting.
So if you give it a sentence,
Yeah.
it can write the next one. If you give it a paragraph,
Yeah.
it might be able to write an entire essay.
Wow.
And it goes beyond text. We're talking tables code,
Wow.
even music.
So it's like an incredibly advanced autocomplete for pretty much
Pretty much.
any kind of digital content.
Yeah.
That's amazing and also a little scary.
It definitely has the potential to be both.
Yeah.
But what makes DeepSeek even more interesting is they really emphasize the role of the user
Okay.
in shaping how the AI functions.
Interesting.
So you provide some input, and then the AI generates an output, and then you as a user can give feedback,
Okay.
like a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Oh, interesting.
And that feedback helps the AI learn and improve over time.
So it's not just a one-way street.
Yeah.
It's like we, the users, are helping to shape how this AI actually evolves.
Exactly.
That raises an important question, though.
Yeah.
What happens to all the information that we feed into these systems?
Yeah.
That's where people get nervous, right?
Absolutely. And it's a completely valid concern.
Yeah.
DeepSeek's terms of use address this directly and say that users retain ownership of their inputs.
Okay.
So basically, you still own the rights to the information that you're putting to the system.
Okay.
But here's where it gets a little bit more complicated.
Right.
They also mentioned that they might use anonymized and de-identified user data to improve their services.
Okay.
So they strip away anything that's personally identifiable.
Yeah.
So the data can't be traced back to you.
So they're saying, hey, your data is still yours. But we might use a sanitized version of it to make our AI better.
Yeah,
But how much comfort does that actually provide?
it's a good question.
How do we know they're really anonymizing it properly?
Right.
And what kind of sanitized data is still valuable to them?
Yeah,
These are all things that you might want to think about before you use DeepSeek, right?
exactly. It's a trade-off
Yeah.
between improving the AI systems
Yeah.
and maintaining privacy.
Right.
Where do you stand on that as a user?
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable with this type of data usage if it meant,
Yeah.
a more powerful and useful AI?
It's a good point. It's definitely something we each have to decide for ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've put some data into DeepSeek's AI,
Okay.
and it spits out this amazing piece of content.
Right.
Can we just take that as gospel truth?
That's a key point to understand.
Yeah.
DeepSeek is very clear that the outputs from their AI are for reference only.
Okay.
They specifically say you shouldn't take them as professional advice.
Yeah.
So medical, legal, financial,
Right.
you name it.
Which makes sense. You
Yeah.
didn't want to base a major life decision solely on what an AI tells you.
Exactly.
Right.
And this actually highlights a bigger point
Okay.
about AI-generated content.
Mhm.
It can be incredibly helpful,
Yeah.
but it does require critical thinking and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah.
We need to understand the limitations of AI
Yeah.
and not just treat it as a replacement for human judgment.
This is where things get really interesting because DeepSeek also outlines some content restrictions,
Okay.
things that you are not allowed to generate or promote using their services.
Okay.
It feels like they're trying to get ahead of some of the ethical concerns that people have
Yeah,
about AI, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Section 3 of their terms is all about this responsible use,
Okay.
and they have a list of prohibited content categories.
All right.
And some of them are pretty noteworthy.
Give us the juicy details.
Sure.
What kind of content are they trying to prevent people from creating?
Well, for starters, anything that exploits, harms, or targets minors is strictly prohibited.
Okay.
So you couldn't use DeepSeek to create a chatbot
Right.
that pretends to be a child
Yeah.
interacting with an adult.
Okay.
That would obviously cross a line.
Yeah.
They also ban content that is designed to impersonate a celebrity or a public figure without clear labeling,
Yeah.
which gets into some tricky territory around misinformation and deepfakes. And then, of course, anything that incites violence or promotes terrorism,
Right.
that's a hard no.
That all seems like pretty obvious things to avoid.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's incredibly difficult to moderate AI-generated content.
It is.
How do you even begin to police something like that?
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Their terms of use don't go into a ton of detail about how they enforce these restrictions.
Okay.
But it is clear that they're aware of the potential for misuse.
Yeah.
And they're trying to set some boundaries.
So with all these restrictions in place, who's ultimately responsible
Right.
for what gets created using DeepSeek's AI?
Mm.
Is it the user?
It's a good question.
Is it the company?
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
And maybe a little unnerving.
Right.
DeepSeek is basically saying, hey, you're in the driver's seat.
Okay.
We're providing the AI engine,
Yeah.
but you are responsible for where you take it.
Okay.
They explicitly state that users are responsible for the inputs they submit and the outputs that get generated. They even reserve the right to take action against users who violate their terms,
Interesting.
which could include account suspension or even legal action.
So it's like any other tool.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to use it,
Right.
but you also have the responsibility to use it ethically and legally.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
AI tools come with responsibilities,
Yeah.
both for the users and the companies that create them.
Wow. This has been incredibly insightful already.
It has.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface
We have.
of what DeepSeek's terms of use
Yeah.
reveal about the world of AI and what it means for us as users.
Right. For me, the biggest takeaway so far
Yeah.
is this concept of informed engagement.
Informed engagement.
We can't just passively consume AI.
Yeah.
We need to understand how it works,
Right.
its limitations,
Yeah.
the implications of using it.
I love that informed engagement. So it's
Right.
like approaching it with both excitement,
Yes.
but also a critical eye. Like we're not talking about some futuristic technology here. This is stuff that is already impacting our lives
Exactly.
in very real ways.
And that's why deep dives like this are so important.
Yeah.
It helps us make sense of this complex landscape.
Right.
Speaking of which, there's another aspect of DeepSeek's terms of use that I think is worth looking at.
Okay.
Their stance on intellectual property.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So we've already discussed how users own their inputs.
Right.
But what about the AI models themselves?
Yes.
Who owns those?
Yeah.
And what happens to the outputs, the content that the AI generates?
That's a great question. And it gets right to the heart of, how AI is changing our understanding of ownership and creation.
Right.
So DeepSeek is very clear
Yeah.
that they own all rights to the services themselves,
Okay.
including the software, the algorithms, the
Yeah.
models,
Yeah.
even the user interface.
Okay.
So think of it like a bakery.
Right.
They own the ovens, the recipes, the whole setup.
So they own all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
That makes the AI tick.
Exactly.
But what about the bread, so to speak?
Yeah.
What about the stuff that users create with their AI?
So that's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They specifically state that they don't own the outputs generated by users.
Okay.
So in a way, they're saying we provide the tools,
Right.
but what you bake with them is yours.
That's pretty significant, isn't it?
It is.
So it means that people could potentially use DeepSeek's AI to create commercial products.
Yeah.
Or even, build their own businesses.
Right.
Imagine, writing a book with the help of AI and owning the copyright to that book.
Yeah,
I mean, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
absolutely.
Right.
It speaks to the potential for AI to be a platform for creativity and innovation,
Right.
not just a tool for specific tasks.
But of course, any new territory comes with challenges.
Sure.
Right. So what happens if there are disputes over the ownership of AI-generated content? Or what if somebody uses DeepSeek's AI to create something that's harmful or illegal?
That's an important question.
Right.
Those are all important questions.
Yeah, so if a user runs into a problem
Okay.
or has a complaint,
Right.
what kind of recourse do they have?
Right.
Does DeepSeek offer any way to kind of address those concerns?
They do. Section 6 of their terms of use covers complaints and feedback,
Okay.
and they outline how users can report issues,
All right.
whether it's, a suspected intellectual property violation or a breach of their terms of use, or even just general feedback.
Okay, so they're at least providing avenues for users to raise concerns and hopefully get them resolved.
Yeah.
But are they really committed to transparency and accountability, or is this just lip service?
Well, one interesting detail is that they're surprisingly open about their contact information.
Oh, really?
They provide a specific email address for complaints
Okay.
and even a physical address in Beijing.
That's not something you see every day
Not really.
from tech companies.
Most of them try to hide behind generic web forms.
It's true. I wonder if that's a genuine effort to be accessible or just like a clever PR move.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
They also mentioned taking legal action in response to certain complaints,
Okay.
but they're pretty vague about what that entails.
Oh, that sounds a little ominous.
Yeah.
What kind of legal action are we talking about here?
Right.
Are they going to sue users who create inappropriate content?
Right.
Or what about copyright issues if somebody uses the AI to generate something that infringes on existing intellectual property?
Yeah.
Who's responsible?
That's a really good question. And unfortunately, their terms don't really provide a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
And it highlights how the legal landscape around AI is still very much under development.
Yeah.
There are a lot of gray areas and a lot of unanswered questions.
It's unsettling a little bit, isn't it?
It's true.
It's like we're all venturing into uncharted territory with this technology.
It's true, and that's why it's so important to pay attention to these terms of use.
Right.
They're not just legal documents.
Yeah.
They're windows into how AI companies are thinking about these complex issues
Yeah.
and how they plan to operate in this new frontier.
I'm starting to see these terms less as boring legalese
Okay.
and more like a treasure map,
Interesting.
full of clues about how to navigate the world of AI.
I like that.
Speaking of navigating,
Yeah.
there's one section I always find a bit daunting.
Okay.
This disclaimer of warranties and limitations of liability.
Yes, the legalese.
Right.
Essentially, they're trying to protect themselves
Right.
from legal claims
Right.
arising from how people use their services.
Okay.
So they're saying, look, we're providing this powerful AI technology,
Yeah.
but we're not making any promises
Right.
about its accuracy, reliability, or fitness for a specific purpose.
So they're acknowledging that AI is still a developing technology,
Right.
and they don't want to be held liable if it makes mistakes
Right.
or doesn't perform as expected.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, but it also puts a lot of responsibility on the user,
Exactly.
doesn't it?
Yeah, they're especially cautious about the outputs generated by the AI,
Oh, okay.
reminding users that those are for reference only
Yeah.
and shouldn't be taken as professional advice,
Right.
which circles back to our earlier conversation
Yeah.
about, critical thinking and informed engagement.
Right. AI can be a really powerful tool,
Yes.
but it's not a magic solution.
Yeah.
It's up to us, the users, to evaluate the outputs,
Right.
consider the context,
Yeah.
and ultimately make our own informed decisions.
Precisely. And I'm noticing a theme throughout their terms of use.
Okay.
DeepSeek seems to be very intentionally emphasizing user responsibility.
Interesting.
They repeatedly stress that users are accountable
Yeah.
for how they use the AI, the inputs they provide,
Right.
and the outputs they generate.
So they're basically saying, we're giving you the keys to a very powerful car,
Yeah.
but it's up to you to drive safely and responsibly. It's both empowering and a little intimidating.
Absolutely. And it circles back to what we discussed earlier
Yeah.
about informed engagement.
Right.
DeepSeek wants users to be active participants in the AI revolution,
Yeah.
but they also want them to do so thoughtfully and ethically.
So let's bring this back to our listener.
Okay.
What does this all mean for the average person who's interacting with AI,
Yeah.
maybe without even realizing it?
It means that We can't afford to be passive consumers of AI technology.
Right.
We need to be aware of how these systems work,
Yeah.
their limitations,
Yeah.
and the potential consequences of using them, both positive and negative.
It's about being informed, asking questions,
Yeah.
and making choices that align with our values.
Right.
It's almost like these terms of use are like a call to action for all of
I
us.
think you're right.
Right?
They're a reminder that the future of AI is being shaped right now.
Yeah.
And it's up to all of us to ensure that it's a future that we can all benefit from. But we're not done yet. There's still more to unpack.
Yes. There are a few more intriguing sections of DeepSeek's terms of use that we need to explore. Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll delve into topics like export controls, sanctions, and account management.
Welcome back to our deep dive into DeepSeek's terms of use.
You know, I gotta say, I started this thinking it would be a totally dry topic.
Yeah.
But, wow, it's
Yeah.
been fascinating.
It has.
It's like we're peeking behind the curtain of the AI revolution.
I completely agree. It's been a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
We've uncovered so much about how this company's approaching the future of AI and what it means for us, the users.
Yeah.
But we're not quite done yet.
Okay.
There are a couple more points I think we should cover.
Okay, let's do it. What else did you find in these terms that
Right.
stood out to you?
Well, there's a section on export controls and sanctions
Okay.
that I thought was really interesting.
Interesting.
It's not something that you typically see
Right.
in consumer-facing terms of service, which makes me think that this technology has implications
Okay.
that go far beyond just individual users.
Why would export controls be relevant to a company like DeepSeek?
I think it highlights that AI technologies, especially ones as advanced as DeepSeek's large language models,
Right.
have the potential to shift global power dynamics.
Okay.
Governments around the world are becoming increasingly concerned about AI being used for things like military applications,
Right.
or giving certain countries a strategic advantage.
So these export controls are a way to try and prevent that from happening.
Exactly.
Make sure that this powerful technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Right. Section 8 of DeepSeek's terms make it very clear that users are responsible for complying with all applicable export control and sanctions laws.
Okay.
This means that you can't use their services in a country that's under sanctions,
Right.
or share the technology with individuals or organizations that are on restricted lists.
It's a sobering reminder that even though we're talking about something as seemingly abstract as AI, there are real-world geopolitical consequences to how this technology is developed and used.
Yeah.
It's not just a fun tool for writing poems or composing music.
Right.
It has the potential to be a really powerful force on the
Definitely.
global stage.
And that responsibility extends to the data itself,
Okay.
both what you put into the system
Right.
and what the AI produces.
Okay.
So you can't submit data that would violate export controls.
Yeah.
And you can't use the AI to generate outputs that would be restricted for export.
Wow. It really highlights the interconnectedness of technology and data and global politics.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a moment
Sure.
and talk about something a little bit closer to home,
Okay.
account management.
All right.
What happens if somebody decides they no longer want to use DeepSeek's services?
Right.
Can they just delete their account and walk away?
So according to Section 2,
Okay.
users do have the option to discontinue using the service, terminate their contract, and delete their account.
Okay.
What?
There are some buts coming.
There are a few nuances
I know.
to consider.
What should users be aware of?
Well, for one thing,
Yeah.
even after you delete your account, DeepSeek still reserves the right to keep certain user data.
Okay.
They don't go into a lot of detail about what kind of data
Right.
or for how long,
Yeah.
but it's likely due to legal or regulatory requirements, or perhaps
Okay.
for their own internal record-keeping purposes.
So even if you decide to sever ties with DeepSeek,
Yeah.
your data footprint might still linger in their system.
Right.
It makes you think twice about what you put out there digitally,
It does.
doesn't it?
And here's another point to consider.
Okay.
Even after you delete your account, DeepSeek can still take action against you
Okay.
for any violations of their terms that occurred while you were using their service.
So it's not a get out of jail free card.
Right.
You're still accountable for your actions even after you've moved on. It really emphasizes that engaging with these AI systems
Yeah.
is not something to be taken lightly.
Right.
There are real consequences
Absolutely.
to our choices in this digital landscape.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive
We have.
into DeepSeek's terms of use.
Yeah.
We've explored their stance on data ownership, content restrictions, intellectual property, export controls, account management.
It's been a lot.
The list goes on as we wrap up.
Yeah.
What's the most important takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
For me, it's the realization that AI is not some abstract concept or science fiction fantasy.
Right.
It's here.
It's here.
It's being used in ways that we may not even be fully aware of.
Right.
And it's up to us to be informed and engaged.
Absolutely.
These terms of use, as dense as they may seem, offer a really valuable glimpse into how AI companies are navigating this complex new world
Right.
and what it means for us as users.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We can't afford to be passive bystanders in the AI revolution.
Right.
We need to be aware of how these technologies work,
Yeah.
their limitations, and the potential impact they can have on our lives and society as a whole.
Exactly. And this deep dive has been a fantastic starting point for that conversation.
It has.
We've seen how DeepSeek is approaching issues of data privacy, content moderation, user responsibility,
Right.
all through the lens of their terms of use.
Yeah.
It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
It really has. And I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
DeepSeek mentions that they may update their terms in the future.
Makes sense.
This is a rapidly evolving field. And what we've discussed today is just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
As AI continues to advance, how do you think these terms and our understanding of AI ethics and responsibility
Yeah.
might evolve?
Mhm.
That's something for all of us to consider as we move forward into this exciting but uncharted territory.
That's a great point. This conversation is far from over.
It isn't.
And we're excited to keep exploring it with you, our listeners, as AI continues to shape our world in new and unexpected ways. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.